The moment my daughter's wheelchair touched the stage, my entire family stood up and walked out. My name is Rachel. I'm 38, and I still don't know what hurt more, the sound of their footsteps or the look in Lily's eyes when she realized they were leaving for her. If you were in my place, what would you have said to your child in that moment? Tell me in the comments, because I'm still trying to understand how a family can stay for every act except hers. The night before the talent show settled over the house in a soft gray hush. Even with the hallway windows shut tight, I could still feel the cool April air waiting outside, the kind that Portland keeps tucked in its sleeves long after winter is supposed to be gone. I walked in telling myself that tomorrow would be different, that my family would finally show up for Lily the way she deserved. It was a small belief, but it kept me moving. I did not know how close it was to breaking. The house greeted me with ordinary comforts. The washing machine hummed from the laundry room, the scent of detergent drifting toward the kitchen where Lily's chocolate chip cookies cooled on a rack. A thin yellow program for the spring talent show was held on the refrigerator door by the red apple magnet she gave me in second grade. Its paper curled slightly at the edges, like it had waited all day for someone to pay attention. I nudged the door shut with my hip and set my things down, slipping the pack of AA batteries onto the sofa. Lily was already practicing, her fingers moving lightly over the keyboard. The melody she rehearsed all week filled the living room in a steady, patient rhythm. Noah sat at the kitchen table, pencil tapping in uneven beats, while he stared at his math worksheet. "Sweetheart, give your hands a break," I said, stepping out of my shoes. "I'm fine," she answered without pausing the keys. "You've practiced plenty today." She gave me a small eye roll, the affectionate kind she saved for me when she knew I was hovering. At 13, she carried a confidence that was still soft around the edges, steady but easily rattled in ways she would never admit. My phone chimed with the familiar alert of our family group chat. "Megan, might be late tomorrow. Jason has practice." "Mom, we'll be there, sweetheart." "Dad," thumbs up. I stared at the messages longer than necessary. Behind me, Noah said quietly, "They're going to bail." He did not look up from his worksheet. He did not have to. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "They won't. Not this time." But the moment the words left my mouth, I felt the uncertainty tucked beneath them. Children sense tension long before adults acknowledge it, and Noah had lived through enough last-minute excuses to recognize a pattern forming again. I gathered the laundry basket and walked toward the hallway. Folding towels was the kind of task that gave me room to think without spiraling. Yet as I smoothed the edges of a dish towel, a memory slid into place, the Christmas photo from 2020. Megan cropped the bottom half to make the card look cleaner, which happened to be the part where Lily's wheelchair was visible. Lily did not complain. She almost never did. But her smile slipped for the rest of the day, not dramatically, just enough for me to feel something settle in my chest, like a quiet ache. I folded the last towel and set it on the stack, letting out a slow breath. Sometimes being a mother feels like holding your hands around a candle flame, trying to protect the light from winds you cannot control. "Mom?" Lily's voice came gently down the hall. She rolled beside me with the program open in her lap. Her name was highlighted, the neon ink glowing beneath the warm hallway light. "Do you think Grandma will see me from the audience?" she asked. "I don't want her to miss it." Her voice carried a softness that pressed into me with more force than anything loud could have done. Hope is a fragile thing when it comes from a child. I brushed a stray curl from her cheek. "She'll see you," I told her. I needed to believe it just as much as she did. Outside, the daylight dimmed into a cloudy blue, the living room filled with the muted glow of early evening. Lily played a few more bars before finally resting her hands. Noah gathered his papers and sighed dramatically, the kind of sigh that shows up when a long school day meets a growing frustration with the world. For a while, the house felt peaceful, like a small shelter holding us together. After dinner, when the dishes were drying on the rack, I unfolded the ironing board and plugged in the iron. Noah had chosen a light blue button-down shirt for the show, saying it made him look a little older. I smoothed the warm cotton under the iron, letting the heat rise toward my face. There is something grounding about these small evening rituals. They remind you that even on uncertain days, some things can be kept steady. While I pressed the sleeves, a quiet thought slipped in, half prayer and half a mother's wish. Let them show up, just this once, for her. I did not say it aloud, but I felt it settle somewhere in my chest as the iron puffed small clouds of steam. The house grew still as the evening stretched on. Lily's cookies left a soft sweetness in the air, and the porch light clicked on automatically outside, faithful as ever. I folded Noah's shirt neatly and draped it over the back of a chair. The room around me felt like it was holding its breath. Tomorrow would arrive whether my family was ready or not. And deep down, I feared I already knew their answer. Families do not turn hurtful in a single day. It happens slowly, like warmth leaking out of a room one thin draft at a time, so gradual you ignore the chill until you suddenly realize your hands are shaking. The drizzle had already coated the windshield by the time I pulled into the school pickup line, and Noah's remark from yesterday echoed in my mind. They are going to bail. I could not shake it, no matter how many times I told myself he was wrong. When Lily appeared at the curb, her backpack thumped lightly against the door as I helped her in. The tiny metal keychain on the zipper jingled every time I touched it, a sound that was oddly comforting in moments like this. Noah climbed in on the other side, slamming the door with a dramatic flare that made the whole minivan tremble. I started the engine, and the wipers scraped across the windshield in their uneven rhythm. Lily leaned forward between the seats. Mr. Nguyen said my technique has really improved. He said my left hand is getting stronger. Noah grinned. You are basically famous now. She nudged him with her elbow. Stop it. But she was smiling, the quiet kind of smile she always wore when she talked about music. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror and felt that familiar swell of pride, warm and fragile. Mom? Lily asked. Is everyone coming tomorrow? I answered too quickly. Of course. Even I heard the false brightness in my voice. Noah did too. He gave me a look that said, You cannot keep pretending. But Lily settled back into her seat, content with the answer, and I let the lie sit between us like an uncomfortable passenger. The road home wound through our quiet neighborhood, rain flickering across the glass. I turned down the NPR segment that had been playing softly. Usually their calm voices centered me, but today they just added to the static inside my head. As the minivan bumped over a pothole, the keychain jingled again, and my mind slipped backward. Backyard BEQ, summer 2021. Megan's yard looked picturesque in the invitation photo she sent. In person, it was gravel and uneven slopes, the kind of terrain that turns a wheelchair into a weight to be dragged. Lily's wheels sank into the ground within minutes. Megan laughed lightly, waving her hand as if she had forgotten the weather forecast rather than the fact that her niece used a wheelchair. We did not think about the yard, she apologized, still smiling. I pushed Lily uphill, sweat prickling down my back, pretending I was not struggling even though my arms ached. Lily smiled at me the whole time, pretending she was not embarrassed. We were both learning how to mask the discomfort in ways the rest of the family did not even notice. A car honked behind me and snapped me back to the present. The line had moved forward. I pressed the gas gently, letting the van roll. Another memory slid in without permission. Autumn of 2017. Megan sat on my apartment couch, mascara smeared, hands shaking, pregnant and terrified. I held her shoulders while she cried, cooked her meals, washed her dishes, changed her sheets, and reassured her that things would be all right. She lived with me for 8 months, rent-free. The day she moved out, she hugged me and said, "We really need our space now." She walked away without a thank you, carrying the comfort I had built for her as if it had always belonged to her. The wipers squeaked again. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. When we reached home, the drizzle softened to a mist. Inside, the house was warm and smelled faintly of the reheated pasta I had packed for the kids. Lily headed straight for the dining table and took out a stack of napkins. She began folding them with careful, rhythmic movements, practicing for the PTA snack table she had volunteered to help with. Noah set his backpack down harder than necessary. "Why do we sit with them?" he asked quietly. "They do not even like us." I looked at him, surprised by how direct he sounded. In 11 years, he had grown from a curious toddler into a boy who saw more than he said. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that we were imagining it, that families like ours do not ignore their own. But the words refused to come together the way they used to. They are family, I said, and even to my own ears, the answer sounded thin. Lily finished folding a row of napkins and placed them in neat stacks. She looked up at me with a small, hopeful expression. There were moments when she carried herself like any 13-year-old, confident and bright, and then moments where she seemed to shrink just a little, waiting for the world to meet her halfway. "Mom?" she asked. "Do you think they will clap for me tomorrow?" Her voice was gentle, but the question hit me with a weight I had not prepared for. I reached out and touched her hand lightly. "They will be your loudest," I said. It was a lie wrapped in love, and I hoped she could not hear the hesitation in it. The evening stretched quietly around us. Noah retreated to his room to finish homework, grumbling about fractions. Lily kept folding napkins, her movements careful and methodical. The house hummed with an uneasy calm, as if it knew something was shifting beneath the surface. Later, after the kids settled into their routines, I stood by the kitchen window. The forecast on the radio said the rain would clear by Friday night, a perfect evening for a school performance. For a brief second, I let myself take it as a sign. Clear skies, clear hearts, a fresh start. I exhaled slowly, letting the idea settle against my ribs. But hope is tricky. Sometimes it shines just enough to lead you forward, even when you should be looking for the cracks beneath your feet. Tomorrow was coming quickly, and I was still trying to believe in people who had already shown me who they were. If I could freeze my life, it would be the moment just before Lily's name was called, the thin breath of calm right before the truth arrived. There was a softness in that slice of time. A sweetness I did not yet understand was temporary. If I had known what was coming, I might have held tighter to those minutes, the way you hold a fragile ornament that could shatter from the smallest slip. Friday evening carried the kind of spring chill our Portland neighborhood specialized in. I helped Lily out of the van, steadying the portable keyboard balanced across her lap. Noah hopped out behind us, carrying her music folder in both hands like it was made of glass. Erin spotted us at the entrance of the Lincoln Middle School auditorium, waving through the light drizzle. "She's going to be amazing tonight," she said, pushing the door open for us. Her confidence warmed something inside me, something worn down by years of hoping too hard. "Thank you," I told her, my voice releasing a breath I had been holding all day. Inside, the air smelled of popcorn, warm fabric from old theater curtains, and that faint tang of floor polish schools never quite get rid of. Stage lights glowed over the proscenium arch, casting a soft gold across rows of folding chairs. People shuffled coats, kids ran toward friends, and the metal legs of seats scraped lightly against the tile. We found our row near the center, 7 seats saved. I tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach as I placed programs across each chair like a silent plea for cooperation. Noah leaned close. "They are already annoyed," he whispered, pointing with his chin toward the aisle. He was right. Megan arrived first, a branded water bottle in hand, her steps just fast enough to suggest she was put out. Jason trailed behind wearing neon neckband headphones he refused to take off. Linda wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself, and Frank walked with his phone raised at an angle, the glow illuminating his face more than the stage lights did. "You made it," I said, stepping forward. "Traffic was awful," Megan announced, as if the evening had wronged her personally. "They said it was an early start," Linda added. "We hardly had time to finish dinner." Frank offered a vague nod and dropped into his seat like he expected the cushion to offend him. I gave Noah a small look that meant, "Please, not now." He rolled his eyes but kept quiet. While people continued settling in, the house lights dimmed slightly. The hum of expectation rolled through the room. Programs flapped like little wings in restless hands. The first act began with a magician kid who misplaced half his props but earned loud applause anyway. Then came a duet, their voices a little shaky but full of heart. A dance group performed next, sequins flickering in the warm lights. Megan sighed theatrically. "This is cute, but long." Frank checked his phone at least 5 times during one student's performance. Linda clapped politely but with the detached rhythm of someone counting the seconds until she could leave. Jason leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at his shoelaces. I clapped for every act, louder than necessary. partly because the kids deserved it, and partly to drown out the embarrassment tightening along my ribs. If kindness could be willed into existence, I would have conjured it, row by row. About halfway through the night, I slipped backstage. The noise softened behind me, replaced by the concentrated quiet of performers waiting their turn. The scent of tempera paint from the old stage props mixed with the faint metallic smell of the lighting equipment. Lily sat near the wings, upright in her chair, fingers stretched lightly above her portable keyboard as she practiced the first chord in the air. Mr. Nguyen was beside her, crouched at her level. "Play like it is just you and the music room," he said. "No audience, no nerves, just sound and movement." She nodded, though her eyes flickered toward the curtain. "Do they look bored?" The question hit me square in the chest. I knelt beside her. "They are here," I said. "That matters." Even as the words left my mouth, I felt the uncertainty behind them, but Lily accepted the answer with a small nod. Doubt glimmered just for a moment before she tucked it away, the way she always did. I stayed with her until the act before hers began to wrap up. Through the curtain gap, I could see Megan flipping through the program, Linda smoothing her skirt, Frank turning off his phone screen. Noah sat stiffly in his chair, watching them instead of the stage. A burst of applause signaled the end of the current act. I squeezed Lily's shoulder. "It is time." She inhaled, steady and deep. There was something luminous about her in that moment, poised and hopeful, unaware that she was standing at the edge of a moment that would change more than the night. The MC stepped up to the microphone. His voice rang across the auditorium. "Next up, performing You Are the Reason, please welcome Lily Harris." The audience clapped, some politely, some warmly. From our row, Noah clapped with both hands raised, like he wanted the sound to reach her directly. The lights brightened, filling the stage with a soft glow that made everything shimmer. Lily moved toward the ramp, her hands steady on the wheels. The room shifted, breaths holding in anticipation. The curtain trembled slightly from the ventilation system, sending a ripple of movement through the fabric. As she approached the edge of the stage, the spotlight widened. The metal ramp gleamed beneath it, guiding her forward with quiet promise. Her wheelchair touched the ramp. A single echo rang out, sharper and louder than it had any right to be. And in that bright, suspended instant, everything else fell silent. They did not leave during the Singing Twins, the comedy skit, or the robotics demo that made half the audience cheer. They left for her, and only her. If anyone had asked me years later when the exact moment my hope cracked, I could point to it with a certainty that still stings. The second Lily's wheels touched the bottom of the ramp, the spotlight widened. Warm light pressed across her mint green dress, catching the soft shimmer of its fabric. She rolled upward with a quiet confidence that made my breath catch. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, the faintest tremble in her fingers. I wanted to believe that tremble came from excitement, not nerves. The audience fell still in that anticipatory hush that only school performances can create, a silence full of goodwill and uneven expectations. Then a chair scraped. It cut through the quiet like a snapped branch. A sharp sound, deliberate, in a room where nothing else moved. At first, I thought someone was adjusting their coat or shifting their weight, but then Megan stood. She rose so abruptly, her tote bag swung against the seat in front of her with a dull thump. Jason stood because she did, his movements automatic. His neon headphones dangled around his neck, bouncing against his chest as he followed her lead. Linda hesitated, one hand on the back of her chair, eyes flicking to me as if she wanted permission to stay seated. But she did not meet my gaze long enough for courage to find her. She rose slowly, clutching the cardigan at her collarbone. Frank stood last, his eyes down, shoulders pulled tight, like he hoped the dim auditorium lights could make him invisible. The entire row began to shuffle out in an uneven line, slipping sideways between knees and programs and the scattered noise of whispered confusion. Every sound expanded as if the auditorium itself had stretched to amplify their departure. The squeak of metal chair legs, the rustle of coats, the soft thud of someone's cup dropping and rolling down the slight incline of the aisle. A little girl's whisper. "Are they leaving?" Noah jerked upright beside me. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Sit down!" I grabbed his arm before he could stand all the way. His whole body trembled, a storm bottled inside a boy. I whispered his name, once, softly. because anything louder might have undone him completely. His jaw shook. He swallowed hard. I held on. But I could not stop the sound of their departure. The aisle swallowed them step by step, as if rehearsed. Megan did not glance back, not once. Linda kept her eyes on the floor. Frank moved like a man walking away from a responsibility he no longer wished to carry. Lily saw it. Of course she did. From the stage, her posture tightened, not crumbling, but condensing. She did not frown, did not look confused, did not let her face fall. Instead, she held everything in place through sheer force of will. Her hands hovered over the keys for a half-second longer than they should have, long enough for me to feel the air shift. She looked at me across the stretch of warm light and dark seating. I tried to smile, but my throat closed. My lips refused to lift, and all I could offer was a weak, hopeful tilt of my chin. She nodded once in return, so small and steady my heart ached. She started to play. The first notes were gentle, lighter than rehearsal, as if she feared a heavier touch might cause something else to break. She moved through the melody with careful commitment, each chord wrapped in the effort to pretend nothing unusual was happening. Parents murmured. A boy near the back whispered, "Why'd they leave?" Another one answered, "That's messed up." The words floated across the dim rows, not aimed at me, but still landing with precision. Erin, seated 2 rows ahead, turned and met my eyes. Shock widened her expression. She mouthed, "Do you want me to go after them?" and lifted one hand slightly toward the door. I shook my head, barely moving. No, this moment did not belong to Megan and her exit. This moment belonged only to Lily, to the child who had practiced every evening, who chose a song she believed would remind our family of something gentle. I forced myself to look at Lily again. She played through the rising measures, the part she loved, her body swaying just slightly in time with the music. I watched her swallow hard once, steadying herself. She reached the emotional swell of the song, the section she told me made her feel powerful, like she was more than a girl in a chair, like she was simply a musician. And then the auditorium door closed behind my family. A soft click. Small, ordinary, final. That click was louder than her music. It echoed in a place inside me I had spent years pretending did not exist. The door latched, and with it something settled and hollowed, a quiet collapse that left my chest feeling too tight for air. Yet Lily played on. She went all the way to the last measure, her hands shaking only once. When she struck the final chord, the audience applauded, some out of genuine admiration, some because applause was expected at the end of every performance. But a handful of parents clapped louder than the rest, their applause aimed at her, not at the routine of the evening. When the sound softened and the light shifted, Lily turned her chair toward the wings. I moved toward the side of the stage, my legs unsteady, my palms damp. She reached me, her face steady, but pale beneath the stage lights. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, thin and trembling on the edges. Did they leave? Because of me? Her question hung between us. I opened my mouth, but no words came. For the first time in years, I had no answer at all. Cruelty does not stop when the doors close. It spills into the spaces where silence usually lives, into inboxes and group chats and the tender corners of a teenager's heart. It lingers like a draft you did not notice until the room has already grown cold. By the time we reached the parking lot that night, the damage had already begun to take root. The car ride home was unbearably quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest, heavy and unblinking. The wipers slid across the windshield in slow, patient strokes, pushing aside the thin veil of rain that had returned. Lily looked out the window, thumb brushing the small charm on her bracelet over and over, the movement steady enough to reveal how tightly she was holding her feelings together. Noah sat rigid in the back seat, arms crossed, jaw clenched. After several minutes, Noah's voice broke through the hush. "I hate them." I gripped the steering wheel. "Do not say that." But the words felt hollow, like they had been emptied of meaning before I spoke them. He turned his face toward the window, refusing to answer. I wished there was something I could say to fix the moment, to soften the blow, but all my usual responses felt useless. When we reached the house, Lily wheeled herself inside, bypassing the kitchen, bypassing me. She did not remove her headband or her shoes. She simply moved down the hallway with quiet determination and shut her bedroom door without a sound. Noah dropped his backpack onto the floor with a thud that echoed across the kitchen tiles. He stormed into his room, leaving me alone with the scent of rain on our jackets and the cooling air from outside. I stood in front of the refrigerator, staring at the program held up by the Apple magnet. Her highlighted name, glowing from a cheap marker, felt like an accusation, as if it were saying, "You knew who they were, you knew this pattern, and still you hoped." Hours later, as the kids settled into whatever restless sleep they could manage, my phone buzzed. "Megan, we left because Jason felt sick. Do not make this dramatic. Linda, we love Lily, you are overthinking it." A moment later, I saw Megan's earlier post still lingering in my feed. Some people love to twist things for attention. It did not name me, but it did not have to. The implication was clear. She was already rewriting the story. I typed a response 3 different times, each draft sharper than the last. Each one felt like a door I did not want to open. Eventually, I powered off my phone and set it face down on the kitchen table. Sometime after 1 in the morning, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain deepen outside. A quiet truth surfaced in the dark. The hurt I felt was not only for Lily. It was for the years I had bent myself into knots, trying to keep a family together that had never once met me in the middle. It was for every time I smoothed things over, made excuses, accepted crumbs as affection. I realized I had spent so long being the fixer that I no longer knew how to let myself feel angry. Saturday passed in a blur of chores and quiet footsteps. Lily barely spoke, but she stayed close to me, drifting in and out of the kitchen while clutching a blanket around her shoulders. Noah avoided the topic entirely, as if naming it would make it worse. The 3 of us orbited each other carefully, trying not to stir the hurt any more than it already was. By Monday morning, the sky was a washed-out gray. Lily rolled slowly beside me into the school entrance, her shoulders slightly tense. A couple of kids approached her in the hallway. One boy said, "Your playing was amazing." A girl added, "I saw your aunt leave. That was weird." Lily nodded politely, forcing a tiny smile, but her eyes dimmed. Shame clung to her, even though it did not belong to her at all. Mr. Nguyen caught up with me in the parking lot after dismissal. "Lily did not deserve what happened," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "If she is open to it, I can connect her with the student leadership group. She has a voice the school needs." Something tightened in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. That evening, as the daylight faded, my phone buzzed with a new call from the school counselor. Her tone held an unexpected brightness. "I wanted to share something," she said. "Some students started a lunch group called Lily's Table. They sit with her. They make sure she is not alone. She did not ask for it, but she shows up every day." For a moment, I could not speak. The kindness of middle schoolers, small and unpolished, filled the quiet spaces where my family's absence had settled. It was a gentle reminder that compassion can grow in unlikely places. When the call ended, I sat in my car with my hands on the steering wheel, tears slipping down my face. Not loud tears, not shaking or heaving, just quiet ones, the kind that finally surface when you can no longer pretend you are strong enough to carry everything. That night, the house was still except for the rain tapping lightly on the windows. Lily rolled into the living room and stopped beside me. She looked smaller somehow, wrapped in her blanket, her face soft in the dim lamplight. "Mom," she said, "if they did not want to see me, why did we try so hard to keep them close?" Her question settled between us with the weight of truth. I looked at her, at the strength in her eyes despite the pain, and felt something shift inside me. A quiet awakening, a recognition that love is not supposed to be begged for. I did not have an answer yet, but I knew I could not keep giving her a family that had no intention of showing up. Some endings are not loud. They do not slam doors or throw accusations across a room. Sometimes they arrive with a quiet breath, a stillness that settles deeper than anger. A simple recognition. This is where it stops. By Tuesday morning, that recognition had taken root inside me. The sky had cleared, leaving behind crisp air that smelled faintly of damp pine and new blossoms. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, trying to gather enough strength to open my inbox. When I finally did, Megan's name sat at the top like a warning. Her subject line read, "We need to talk about what you did." Her email was long. Paragraph after paragraph, she wrote that Lily had misinterpreted everything, that I had twisted a small misunderstanding into a spectacle, that they only stepped out briefly, and that my reaction had ruined the night for everyone. She accused me of being emotionally manipulative, dramatic, and ungrateful. She wrote as if she had not walked out on a child who adored her. I read the entire thing without moving. My heart did not pound. My hands did not shake. There was only a calm, unexpected, and steady, like the hush that follows a storm when the world has already chosen its shape again. I typed a single reply. "You left the second her wheelchair touched the stage. That is the truth. We are done pretending." I read it twice, not to soften it, but to make sure it was enough. Then I sent it and archived our entire message thread. My screen went still, the silence afterward carrying a relief that surprised me. By Wednesday, the sunlight had warmed a little. At lunchtime, I visited the school, checking in with the office before walking toward the cafeteria. Voices spilled into the hallway, laughter, trays clattering, sneakers squeaking on linoleum. Lily sat at a table near the windows, shoulder to shoulder with two girls I had seen in passing. They were eating pizza and doodling cartoons on their folders. All three of them shared a set of bright wristbands that read, "Everyone belongs here." One girl nudged Lily, pointing at a doodle shaped like a lopsided cat. Lily laughed, covering her mouth in that shy, delighted way she had when something caught her off guard. The sound lifted something inside me, something that had been heavy for too long. She spotted me and waved, but she did not leave the table. I waved back lightly, letting her stay rooted in the moment that belonged to her, not to me. On the drive home, she held the wristband in her hand the entire way. That evening, she taped it to the edge of her bedroom mirror, smoothing it with her thumb as if placing it somewhere sacred. Later that night, the air had turned cool again. Lily and I sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, the quiet neighborhood stretching out in soft lamplight. The sky had deepened to a soft blue-gray, the kind of color that makes everything feel closer. Lily leaned toward me. "Do you think they'll ever say sorry?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, not bitter, just tired in the way only a child can be when she learns a lesson too early. "Maybe," I said, "but we do not need it to move forward." She exhaled slowly, leaning her head on my shoulder. Her hair brushed my cheek, light and warm. I held her close, feeling her settle in the way children do when they know they are safe, even after being hurt. For years, I had tried to bridge gaps, mend rifts, stretch myself thin enough to make everyone comfortable. But in that moment, something inside me aligned. A truth I had always known but never said aloud finally took shape. I will never again shrink my daughter to fit someone else's comfort. I whispered it first, then repeated it silently, letting the words settle like a promise. They felt solid, a boundary carved not out of anger but out of clarity, a line drawn gently but firmly enough that it could not be erased. We stayed outside until the air grew colder. When we finally walked back inside, the living room lights glowed softly. Noah sat cross-legged on the rug with a board game spread across the coffee table. He looked up when he heard us. "Mom," he called, "we saved you a seat at our table." The invitation was simple, ordinary, and somehow everything. Lily wheeled forward to join him, her blanket still around her shoulders. I felt the echo of old hurt lingering at the edges, but it no longer weighed me down. Instead, there was a sense of beginning, as if, after all the unraveling, we were finally stitching together something real. I sat down beside my children, the warm hum of our small, imperfect home settling around us. And for the first time in a long while, I felt the line between past and future shift quietly into place. A line drawn not in anger, but in the gentle certainty of choosing what and who truly mattered. Sitting with my kids in the warm light of our little living room, I realized that belonging isn't something you chase. It's something that grows where kindness is allowed to stay. These past days taught me that family isn't always the people who share your name, but the ones who choose to stand beside you when others walk away. Life has a simple truth. When love is real, it reaches for you. When it isn't, Its absence speaks louder than any apology, and I've learned that no child should ever carry the weight of someone else's shortcomings, especially when steady, gentle love is right within reach. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments. And if you'd like to join me for more true human stories like this one, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your presence here truly matters.